So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. Then, per the Israelic lineage, reading from Yeshayahu, then we find a layer of understanding where then the cities of the Messiah then returning, and those cities were then laid waste for many centuries. Obviously then, in terms of the understanding of the Gentile level, where we find in the world transitioning itself from the time of the 1,000 years of deceit, and then we are during the time of the dragon, or, speaking of tabernacling, then the time of restoration. So then, speaking of our own country, United States, we understand, since there is no availability of a prophet of the holy city yet, then we must be very wise on making decisions, because there is no guideline yet from the first holy city on the land of Cush. So then, we find then many candidates already making themselves obviously prompt for the next election. As we understand, unfortunately, our country has taken a wrong path. We are not doing what we should be doing. And then there is the problem thus far with the printing of money out of control. So then, not only these, but then Australia and Japan organizing themselves, and they think they can continue on with their junkies of the past. There is a system coming from the east, and the dragon system must be established. Dragon is not a bad term. It is a term of precision. So then, from these, we then establish the importance of finding a president in our land, where then a person can direct properly and having a sound understanding of the market, of the military, of the influence of this country, becoming then partners with the world's market. There is only a person that we can evaluate very prompt. It could take our nation then where we want. And his name obviously is Jessy Ventura. He used to be the governor of Minnesota, and then he is obviously the best option thus far, because he used to be a Navy man. He was then from the top team. Not only this, but he was a mayor, he was a governor, and he established many documentaries related with the most important topics of our land. You won't find any other candidate as qualified as he is. And since we do not have the luxury of asking then the Holy Prophet, then he is obviously the best option. So then, we some time ago experienced some of the states then trying to separate themselves from the Union. It is the perfect time, the next election, of electing a person then prepared for the task before us. As we understand, 36 months would be the very maximum and the most troublesome time of our country. But not only this, there are other areas that we must be then very acquainted, such as giving a person as then a economic development, or economic developer, or the Ministry of Economic Development, such as New Zealand. They are absolutely a great government. They are then updating their backlogs, and the Minister of Development is doing a great job. If you then listen to the shortwave radio stations from New Zealand, you find many information regarding then the leadership of the developing, and then you can establish then your own understanding of how it should be. Because our country, unfortunately, it became such a monstrosity. Nothing works in our country. We must understand this is a fact, is a hard fact, in quote, on stone. Our country doesn't work. So then, establishing from a viewpoint where we admit that our country does not work, not only this, but then we find ourselves provoking the North Koreans with these junky military exercises, rather than de-escalating the information, de-escalating then the relationship over there, then we provoke them further. And the South Koreans, via the shortwave radio station, then Radio Korea International, some time ago, they were absolutely complaining from the top of their lungs, stating that the U.S. has bad intentions over there, and they are tired of then U.S. trying to entice North Korea. Plain and simple. So then, since we should not be then provoking other people, then we find ourselves then trying to round up some other countries such as Japan. They are already online with their money printing festival. Then, believe it or not, Australia even got in the midst of it. So we are absolutely on the wrong path, and we don't understand this system yet coming. So let's try then retrieve from this world's scenario, because this government of ours does not work. It simply doesn't. It became a halted system where then this country is walking backwards into the future. And we must not, under any condition. So then, Mr. Ventura is our best option of combining then military experience, mayorship experience, then governorship experience, and obviously would put our nation back where we belong. We don't have any other candidate with such record of clear path. So then we simply must then establish as a team then an economic developer, as then New Zealand is doing. Is our best example. And then revitalize our industry. Try to clean up our government. Investigate this Ozarks mystery over there, because it's absolutely a piece of junk. A lot of money was invested in the Ozarks, and our country is not going to move over there. Because we understand IMF already gave us 2 years ago, we must place our economy under the control. And they are expected the financial ruin of our country. That's why Ozarks is there. So then, rather than going to the Ozarks, then we must create a plan and replace then the leadership of this country with a person with then courage and limitations, because this government has no limitations. This government is acting as a child or then a kid, a youngster with a credit card and no limit. In this plan over there in a hot area of the world over there, a hot sea, or South China Sea, trying to provoke them further to destabilize then the Asian market, it's not going to work. We best already face the situation, because our influence in the world unfortunately is very bad at the moment. We are not doing what we should be doing. And then we admit this country doesn't work. But not because we don't have the capability, it's because of the management. We must place this country in the new management. And then the candidate is very clear. If you study the life of Mr. Jessy Ventura, you'll find that his record is very honorable. It's our only chance. Since we don't have a way of asking a holy prophet, it is then our only option. So then it takes a bit of a courage to take on this huge responsibility, because the government is building Ozarks because they know our monetary system will be ruined. That's why we have the Ozarks. They say, oh, in the event of a problem. No, wait a minute. Coming from a country such as powerful as ours from of old, do you think they would build over there such an expensive place with the utmost quality then if they were not concerned with the monetary system being ruined? So they are not joking. It's not if the event or in the event of taking place, they are already counting with it. But the problem is, with the monetary system down, how are we going to relate with the Chinese system then? With the new trades language. We won't be able of having then a subsystem equivalent of the market in order to be partners with the new market. That's we are problem then. We are facing this problem, and then we must tackle it properly. And not only this, then we find the Russians already in charge of the BRICS. So then you can be sure of it. When China becomes absolutely sick of the world situation, in terms of US then provoking South Korea, then provoking then Japan, provoking then Australia, trying to go over there to the hot zone then to destabilize then the Chinese system, they're going to get tired of it. And they're going to hire then the Russians, and then the situation is going to get ugly. And we know it. Try to understand it from Daniel the 11th chapter. What does it state, 11th chapter of Daniel? When a person has doubts as far as what's coming in the future, we refer then to the Holy Instructions. What do we find? Daniel, then the prophet, he was then not only a prophet, he was a politician, and he was an economical developer, he was a tradesperson. And he is saying that in the 11th chapter there is a relationship of the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. There is no other interpretation other than Russia, kingdom of the north, and then Africa, the kingdom of the south, yet birthing. Why? Because when you understand the Holy Instructions and the shadow prophetic events, they started then in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, where you find the first verse, unto the 21st verse, you find the spring feast. The spring feast is then layered with Yeshayahu, the 61st chapter, the first section of it. Then you find Ruth. The Megillah of Ruth, or the writings of Ruth, is then Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, 22nd verse. So the entire Megillah, the understanding, the spiritual understanding of Ruth is the 22nd verse. Then you'll find the autumn feast, 23rd verse until the 44th verse. So based from these times and seasons, rehearsals, holy mikras, then we place ourselves in Daniel. Daniel have the introduction, first chapter, second chapter is the statue. But then it does not relate with the tabernacle, it relates with Gentile. Gentile time. And those are simultaneous working side by side. So we find in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th chapter, then you find the explanations of the statue. And those who is going to be then in charge of the top, and then the silver, and then you find the bronze, and then you find the legs of iron. And then after the destruction of the Roman Empire came then iron and clay. Then iron and clay came also the time of the seat. 1,000 years, ended in 2009. What was the event of the changing? Then so you can understand the holy cities laid away for many centuries. The destruction of Jerusalem in the tomb for the first time. Thus it started in 1009, the time of the seat, until 2009. So you hear then Daniel explaining, then people would go to and fro during 1,000 years, and then at the peak of it would end with knowledge. Increasing of knowledge from the viewpoint of a tradesperson. What do you understand trade and high knowledge? Computer. When you place computer and high knowledge from a person of trade, you understand computer trade. There is no other meaning. Computer trade, what do you understand? What country is the most tradersome of this world? China. So you understand there is a Chinese system coming. Then when it does, we understand a couple of chapters later, after the 11th, you understand then Bel and the dragon. Because it gives you the spiritual understanding of Babylonian system and the system of precision of the dragon. So then what are we doing in our country that makes absolutely a contrast of this understanding? We find in our country holding on to the Balian system, isn't it? Is it or it isn't? You have to establish in your mind. It is, because it is a Babylonian system. So then there goes USA joining up with then the Japanese and printing out more money and printing out more money. Then provoking the South Koreans to do military exercises, then provoking the North Koreans on top of it. Then the radio station is screaming from Korea, complaining that the US then is nosing around in their trade over there. Then not only this, then you find Australia involved in sending a ship over there in a hot zone, provoking the war, provoking the Chinese system. They're going to get tired of it, and they're going to rise up, and they're going then to hire the Russians. Then the Chinese have a manager. Then the Balian system is done away with. Because the end of the understanding of Daniel, when the time of the seat ended in a peak of knowledge, is for the purposes of trade. Trade is computer trade. When we do this, you understand volume. When you understand volume, you understand the freighters of the earth. So then it takes Jessy Ventura to get our country back where we belong. Rebuilding, restructuring, so then we can become partners with the world's new market. Obviously, a visit then with the freighters of this country, finding out what is required, what can be done. Could they lend the government their tracking system for taxing purposes? And making a deal with them. So why do when provoke then the Chinese, we provoke the North Koreans, we provoke then the South China Sea, we're trying to hold on to the Balian system where the dragon is already over there roaring around. We are going to bust ourselves because we are not in line with the holy instructions. Read the understanding and the meaning of the instructions. And these are the basics. We are not even talking about tabernacling. We are not even talking about then the 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. And then the true directives that those prophets from those cities can give. But we don't have this luxury yet. The first holy city is not ready. So we can't ask a prophet. Because they don't exist yet. What has the Messiah said? Whatsoever Moses told you to do and observe, these, the set apart, should do and observe. Can we find a prophet outside of these order from the Messiah? No. You can't. There are no prophets in the world. The first holy city is in the land of Cush. Is it already? No. The holy site wasn't even found yet.